First tour I led, I was 28. We chartered a whole ship. There were 283 passengers. It was called the Orpheus. We did a 17-day Journeys of Paul, Egypt, Israel inclusive, and 2 years later, the ship sank.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Parker. I'm the Global Marketing Director here at Imagine.
I'm Rick Ricart, owner of Imagine Tours and Travel.
Welcome to this week's edition of Imagine That. Today we get the opportunity to speak with a great friend, Ed Diaz. He's going to share with us how his 40-plus years of leading tours to Israel, Greece, many other destinations, how that has impacted his life and his ministry.
We've been fortunate to know Ed for probably 20 of those 40 years, and not only is he a biblical scholar, but he's a mentor to many, and really he doesn't like to use the word pastor, but a pastor to many pastors, and a teacher to those that really want to grow closer to Christ.
So let's spend a few minutes and listen to what Ed has to share with us. So let's jump into it. All right, we're here with Ed Diaz, a great friend, mentor, pastor, teacher. Ed, could you take just a couple of minutes to introduce yourself?
Sure. I got out of seminary in 1976 and helped start a ministry called Walk Through the Bible, and spent many years traveling around the country helping people get the big picture of the Bible. Along the way, we started doing Israel trips. My first one was in 1978. I was 28 years old, didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I loved going to Israel because it was the best way to help people understand the Bible. So I've been doing it ever since. I've been over 40 times, been on the Journeys of Paul. I've been very blessed to teach all over the place, all over the country, and but particularly interested in taking people to Israel where the light goes on and people say, this is a real place. These are real people. These events really happened.
That's, we kind of, as we were preparing here, we kind of underestimated how long you had been doing tours. So it's been 40 plus years that you've been doing tours.
And then even after I left Walk Through the Bible, I've been involved with Search Ministries, which was an evangelism ministry using relational apologetics. But again, we could take people, even people that weren't a part of our faith, take them to Israel, and that was a big boost and move them forward along that path. And then about 12 years ago, my wife and I started our own nonprofit called 7117 Ministries, after Psalm 7117, where we do the same stuff. We mentor younger people, try to help them understand how their faith can work in the marketplace and at home, and transfer their faith to the next generation.
Yeah, you've also, so that, and I think plugging in where you have also led and fed into a lot of businessmen in the Lakeland area and beyond.
Yes, my focus has been business people, especially in the South, where a lot of people still go to church. It's a good thing to do, but a lot of them don't have that personal relationship with Christ, and so it's been a great opportunity to get next to them, teach Scripture, and allow God to work, and we've been blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, I know I'll let Rick share his history with you, but I know I got to spend probably a summer with you walking through the life of Christ, and just how impactful that was for me and my journey. I imagine it's been for a lot of men.
Having known Ed, we're probably going back now close to 20 years.
I would say more.
Maybe even more. Okay. And just to go back, I mean, when you first started, 28 years old, on your first trip and so forth, tell us a little bit about what that looked like then.
Well, there were 5 of us, and we started this seminar organization called Walk Through the Bible, and traveled around the country to different churches, giving people a big picture of the Bible. And along the way, came to understand that we could take people to Israel and show them in living time what the places of the Bible look like. So we actually were bold enough. I'm 28, the other guys are 29, 30, and we chartered a ship. We did a 17-day trip. We started in Yugoslavia, went down through the Adriatic, did the Journeys of Paul in the Aegean. We did the Greek islands, went over to Turkey. We did Ephesus, went through Israel. We spent a couple of nights in the northern part of Israel, a couple of nights in the southern part of Israel, and then went to Egypt, and then came home through Venice. 17 days on a ship that handled 283 people, which, by the way, sunk 2 years later.
Oh my goodness. Do you remember even what the cost was for that trip?
People complained because I think it was $1,100.
$1,100 for 17 days. Amazing.
That is amazing.
That's almost what we pay for air taxes today. I mean, $600-700 per seat just alone. So now you've done Walk Through the Bible. I know you've also you're a Bible scholar. You've led and done teachings, even with the likes of Dr. Stanley.
I was very fortunate to get to know Dr. Stanley, and Charles used to go overseas every year. And one year we'd go to Israel, and another year we'd go on the journeys of Paul. And we did that for over 10 years together. And that was amazing because we were taking 300 and 400 and 500 people on a trip because he was so popular. And he would allow me to come in and teach and again give the overview of how the Bible fit together. Again, I describe most people's experience with the Bible is it's like they're trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, and they have this piece and they have that piece and this piece, but they don't know where the pieces fit. And I've been blessed to be able to just say, look, here's the box lid for the jigsaw puzzle. Here's where this piece fits, how that piece fits. And so again, that overview on a regular basis has really helped me personally in my faith and seems to help many others.
Over your 40 plus years of leading tours, I'm sure that you've had all of them have probably been impactful, but do you have maybe just one or two that you can remember that were maybe more impactful than another one?
Well, I'm so old I don't remember much, but the last trip I did was 2023. We went in March, which was 6 months before October 7th happened. And it was just the most delightful group because we had different generations. We had people in their 70s, we had people in their 50s, we had parents in their 30s and 40s, and I was blessed to have 5 of my grandkids on that trip. So it was just fun to watch the different age groups interact and have a great time there. And again, I don't think you can have a bad time in Israel. And again, part of that is the places you get to stay because Imagine Tours does such great planning. The food is always off the chart. The guides are top notch. And, it just could not have gone better. But, every trip is unique. Every trip is different. Sometimes I've taken 100 people and divided them up into 3 buses, and there's more time for interaction. Sometimes the hardest groups are the smaller groups because when you're in charge of a small group, I've taken 10 or 12 people, and then you have to answer every single question about every single possible thing.
Yeah.
And there's more pressure on the leader. But having always included in the trips that I do, if they're larger trips, I always have other pastors, other teachers, other youth pastors, and try to equip them to take the trips and do this throughout ministry.
Can I have you expound on some of the benefits of a generational? Because having not just your children, having your grandchildren with you, we're getting more and more requests for those types of trips. But a lot of folks really aren't familiar with them. And can you expound a little bit on that?
Sure. I think there's something really special about taking your kids or your grandkids out of the country. I just think it's a whole new world. You get great time together, beginning on the plane flight, which is very long, but you eat around the table with them on a regular basis 2 or 3 times a day, and you find shared interests and different interests. So the enthusiasm of mixing the generations for me has always been a winner.
On your tours, you lead a lot of ministries back here. You speak into a lot of people's lives. Have you had something that's happened or something that you've learned while you were traveling that you've been able to bring back and use in ministry every day?
Oh gosh, many things. I mean, I as many times as I've been, I always learn something new, and God always shows up in a very special way. Sometimes in a very small moment. The last trip we were on, the Garden of Gethsemane, was particularly poignant because I divided people up into small groups or family units, and just got to see my kids pray with their kids, and that was such a blessing to me. On the other hand, a couple of trips before that, we were at the theater in Caesarea, and there was a group from New Zealand, and they do that stomping dance. I think it's called a haka, and that was phenomenal because it was all filled with Bible verses and Jesus. And so we were there, and then another time, probably 10 or 15 years ago, we were there in that same theater, and we were opposite a group from Korea, and they spoke no English, but they started singing a hymn that we all knew. And so we started to sing with them. And then we would do one verse and they would do another verse. Just a very kind thing. And I could go on and on. Every time I go to the Garden Tomb, it just blows me away that there are many different languages being spoken of people from all tribes who love Christ. And, the kingdom's going to be full of multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multi-groups of people that we're all going to be able to get along for a change. And so just being in that environment where you anticipate the resurrection and appreciate what's going on in our faith just kind of blows you away.
I know your ministry has been really focused a lot on professional business people, men, women, and so forth. You've also incorporated, I know we've done some trips with you in the past where you actually had golf in Caesarea with PGA, some of those players. Tell us a little bit about that impact and just that unique calling in that sense.
Well, that's been fun too. Again, I've been fortunate to do chapel on the PGA Tour from time to time. One of my dearest friends and coworkers was their full-time chapel guy for 35 years. And along the way, several of them had become board members, had become personal friends, had been in Bible studies I had been able to do. So taking them different places has been a joy. And there's only one golf course in Israel, so there was one condition that one of the men said, "Yeah, I need to go, but I need to be able to play a round of golf." And so that worked out. You guys worked out the details particularly well on that. I don't know if I should mention names. I probably shouldn't, but
That's okay.
that's been really fun. I had a very well-known Hall of Fame golfer with me who won the Masters several times and happened to be from Germany. He was very concerned going to Israel how he would be received in the Jewish world. People loved him, and it actually helped us one time. We were trying to get into one of the churches on the Sea of Galilee. I think it was the Church of Billows and Fishes,
Correct.
which is run by German monks.
Yes.
And we got to the door of the church and it was locked. And there was a sign that said they were having a service in there. That was the only time we were going to be able to be there. So we knocked on the door and they said, "We're sorry, we're in the middle of a service." But I brought my friend, the golfer from Germany, up to the door and they recognized him right away. Needless to say, we got in, had a great tour of the church, and everyone was happy.
Yeah, that was a good name drop, right?
He was a national hero to them.
When pastors are planning the tours, sometimes, or the tour hosts, they may be a little bit hesitant about what's going to need to come from them in the planning. You, I know, are pretty hands-on in the planning of the tour, but can you talk a little bit about maybe what the cost is for them to be able to put into planning their tour?
The cost in terms of time, I think, is a great investment. And the great thing about Imagine Tours has been, for me, you can do as little as you want or as much as you want. I took my pastor with me on my trip in 23, along with one of our youth guys. And he had been before, but he had never been on a trip where the pastors were actually involved in the teaching part of the trip. And they had just let the guide do everything. And the guides are equipped to do everything. They probably know the Bible as well as we do, maybe better in most cases. But on the other hand, if these are my people and I've been able to build into their lives, especially if I'm their pastor, I want to make sure at least a couple of times a day, maybe once in the morning and once in the afternoon, that I'm doing a good devotional. Now, the devotionals are short. I try to keep them 3 to 5 minutes. If I have guests along with me that are leading, I'll try to give them some of the key sites. Being on the Sea of Galilee is a very special place. You don't need a 2-minute devotional on the Sea of Galilee. But I had a guy went so long one time. We got about 25 minutes in and he was 3 points into a 5-point message. And the boat captain looked at me and I looked at him, shrugged his shoulders and just cranked up the engines and off we went. We just kind of ended the message right there. But, the joy is being able to teach the Bible in the places where the events took place. I took an attorney from Oklahoma City with me, and the first time he literally wept because he's teaching in Capernaum where Jesus lived. He's in the synagogue across the street from Peter's house, and he just could not get over the fact, he was overwhelmed by the fact that here I am in this place where Jesus was, and I'm teaching the scripture here. It doesn't get any better than that.
Not any better than that, for sure.
What is some of the feedback that you've received from those that have traveled with you as to how it's impacted them after traveling with you on some of these
Oh,
trips.
yeah. One of my favorite lines came from a pastor friend in Kentucky who had gone with me. And the next day, he wrote me a long, thankful email, but the letter opened up with the phrase, "I'm sitting down to read my Bible with brand new eyes." And what I try to share with people is, look, reading our Bible is what God wants us to do. Without going to Israel, it's still a really good thing. But I describe it as reading the Bible and not having been to Israel is almost like watching an old black and white television set. Having gone to Israel, it's like watching a television set that's 3D, high definition, surround sound, the whole deal. And so there's nothing I know that you can do as a pastor or a spiritual leader that will help your people understand the Bible more and get more excited about it than take them to Israel. That's why I've kept doing it in all these years.
I'm sure over those years you've probably had to either promote tours that have had some conflict that they've been dealing with in Israel, or maybe even been in Israel while that happened. Can you kind of speak to that situation and how you handled that?
I will gladly speak to that. But one of my favorite tours of all times was right after the Hezbollah war. Hezbollah was when the Lebanese came in from the north and bombarded the northern part of Israel. And that was going on, and we were about 2 months from our departure date. And of course, naturally, people panicked. And we had a group phone call, and we decided, shall we go or shall we not go? Because at that time, there had been a truce that was in place. And so I think we had 35 people signed up to go on that trip. 17 decided they would go with us. And we went. And it was the greatest trip we've ever had because there was no traffic. There were no lines at the stops. We actually got to go right on the roads and see bullet holes in buildings. But again, we never felt anything but safe. One of my ministry friends that I've been in partnership with for the better part of 40 years, he would not go to Israel his whole life. For 30 years. And maybe 25 years, he was just concerned about safety. And I got him to go, and I got him to go, and I got him to go. And finally, about the second day in Israel, he said, "I don't know what I was worried about. This is phenomenal." And he has since led 4 or 5 trips of his own.
Wow.
So again, we're at the end of a 2-year major outbreak in the south of Israel, but I know people who've been there. I know people who live there. I know Rick always says this: if the mothers are sending their children to school, if the businessmen are going to work on Monday, which is their Sunday, I feel good about having people in Israel. I have never felt anything but safe. Now, I have at times had to rearrange schedules, even on my most recent trip, but nothing that had us concerned. The people that Rick uses on the Israel end of things are really plugged into security, what's going on with the military, what's going on with special ops. And so we know before the fact what's happening.
In all the trips that you've led, I would imagine that you have had to deal with maybe different denominations that are on the bus with you on your trip. Can you? I know that probably could be a big deal, but I think is easily handled if you have the right conversations. How have you dealt with that in the past?
I just think you love the people, and we have so much more in common than we have that we differ on. And ultimately, it's about Jesus, and he lived here, he grew up here, he was a Jew, and so I always teach the Bible from that perspective, that everything Jesus does in his ministry is from a Jewish culture. And to get to see that firsthand and know that still exists 2,000 years later just kind of blows us away. So again, we just focus on him, and we try to sing older songs, traditional hymns that all denominations use. And if there's a problem, if somebody wants to get to a particular service, I've had couples along the years that wanted to get to a mass in a Catholic church. Yeah. Great. And again, through Imagine and through their people in Israel, we're able to get people from the hotel on a Saturday or Sunday to a mass and make that happen for them. So again, our focus is how can we best serve these people? I've had many unbelievers go with me to Israel, and again, they are always blown away by how the Christians love them and accept them and include them in group activities. And I had many people come to faith as a result of having gone to Israel with me. That to me is just the best.
I know you deal with a lot of professionals. I'm going to angle is more towards men. When you have a male travel with you and the impact that they have after traveling there and being there firsthand, what have you heard or seen when they've returned?
The impact that a man can have on his business uh, is much easier from the top down than the bottom up. Not that we can't do both, but a guy who is in a leadership role in his business, having gone to Israel, having walked with Christ, having grown in his faith, has the ability to impact the culture of that company. And so for me, that's just, again, God has blessed me and been given me the ability to have the opportunity to do that in the case of many, many men. But it's just fun to watch, when they get home, having been to Israel. So my best friend is my dentist. And, when he came home, his entire practice changed just because of the love that he had for Israel and the newfound freedom he had in the scripture.
So you're seeing people come back from Israel with this newfound view of the Bible, and it's impacting their lives back here, not only in their business life, but I would imagine in their church lives and their church communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, in the case of my own kids, I've been fortunate to have taken all my sons to Israel. And even when they grew up, went off to college and had those doubts that all college students get, they were always able to say, yes, but I've been there. I've seen these places. These are real places. There are real people there that did these things. And so for me, that's been a real anchor for their faith. And again, it's just fun. I mean, it's just fun to go to these places, the places you get to stay. The hotels are great. The food is great. The guides are great. The people that you meet are great. Yeah, there's a hiccup on every trip, but that's part of the joy. You're never going to travel anywhere and not have a problem. So just see how they come up and then how God resolves them. That's the joy.
I've heard you say over the years that Israel is like the fifth gospel.
It's the continuation of what went on in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the miracle that is Israel, that, after Jesus dies, 40 years later, the whole country is destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. And then till 1948, there is no Israel. But God's not done with Israel yet. The book of Romans, chapters 9, 10, 11, make it very clear that Israel has a great past, but an even greater future. And I think we're at that time in the program of God where God's putting things back together so that things can play out in Israel the way they're supposed to, leading up to and including the second coming of Christ. If Israel's not in the land, I don't think Christ comes back. And if the Jews don't ask him to, he won't come back. So again, that's my understanding. I actually, on my last trip, I did a podcast for the people that were going, so we didn't have a lot of time to do teaching sessions. But I did it. It was called Israel, Past, Present, and Future, and tried to put together the scriptures in terms of why Israel existed in the scriptures in the Old Testament, what Israel is today, because there's so many different aspects to Judaism today, and the future for Israel as we walk forward into future events.
Well, Ed, we certainly appreciate all the time that you've been able to spend with us this morning. We were blessed for you to be able to actually come in and sit with us because you're right here. So we get to spend more time than just this. But thank you for coming in. Thank you for spending time with us. And thank you for speaking into our lives.
In the words of Jerusalem, Todah.
Todah.
Can I have you add, if you could, one more time, just talk a little bit about your ministry and how folks can actually get in touch with you and follow up or support your ministry if they want to learn more?
My wife and I are the executive directors of 7117 Ministries. We have a website, 71-17.org. Through that, we provide free materials. Everything we do is on a free basis. We are a nonprofit, so we do raise our support. We have a newsletter that goes out every month that my wife, who is a professional writer, does a spectacular job with. At the same time, she does a daily devotional called My Daily Briefing. You can subscribe to that for free at mydailybriefing.org. And that's a good overview of the Bible. In 365 days, you can walk through the chronological story of the Bible and see that it really does make sense when the stories unfold chronologically. And so that's been a big part of what we've done over the last few years. And, we do apologetics. We're here in Lakeland, Florida, but if you want to holler at me, you can contact Imagine Tours. Be happy to take your phone call, spend whatever time you need. Can't talk about Israel enough and have people understand the scriptures enough.
Great. Thank you,
sir.
It was great to spend some time with Ed Diaz today. If you are looking to get in touch with Ed, we will post a link in the comments below on how to contact either Ed or 7117 Ministries. Of course, with Imagine, if you have any questions for us, you can send it to info@ittworld.com or sales@ittworld.com. You can also contact us by phone at 863-709-9208. And of course, we would love for you to like and subscribe to the channel so that you can receive notifications and we can stay in touch with you that way.
Thanks for tuning in to Imagine That.